Hey everyone, and welcome back to another industry report. Today we have a hell of an interesting story, really a big roundup. So, players have wanted a multiplayer Bethesda RPG for a very long time. ZeniMax's Elder Scrolls Online actually does a pretty decent job, but it still very much is an MMO. As for Bethesda's Fallout 76, well, suffice to say it has its issues. Fundamentally, for people who just want to play Skyrim with their friends, there really isn't anything. I mean, you can play it on your Echo, your Amazon Echo, but you can't do it with your friends in a multiplayer setting. Of course, over the years, this has led to multiple projects, multiple mod projects that have tried to make this dream a reality, with Skyrim Together now being very popular and financially successful, bringing in $26,000 per month on its Patreon as of the time of recording. That used to be 35 grand, and the reason for that massive decrease has led to this video. Skyrim Together, of course, was able to uniquely benefit from the current news cycle. Players really wanted that Bethesda RPG, and Fallout 76 really should have been the official answer, the official thing that they wanted, but of course, it had a very troubled launch. Soon after that launch, right when the pushback against 76 hit its fever pitch, that's when Skyrim Together launched its beta. They could not have timed it better, with them offering basically a multiplayer version of Skyrim right when Bethesda had just disappointed people with their multiplayer Fallout attempt. Now, the Skyrim Together beta was not publicly available though. No, it was only for people who backed them on Patreon, with them offering 2 tiers of access. People who paid $1 would get access, but were limited to 10 tick rate servers, while people who donated $20 got servers with a tick rate of 60. Now, tick rate is basically the number of times the server is updating per second, so suffice to say, a tick rate of 60 results in far better gameplay than a tick rate of 10. Now, this led to a surge in new Patreon supporters, with them of course soon getting that 35 grand per month number pretty early on. Something which is actually a little bit questionable, because it's totally fine for modders to solicit donations externally. However, having mods be paywalled does seem to be a bit troublesome in terms of service. I would not be surprised if Bethesda actually shut them down or mandated that they stopped offering unique beta access to their Patreon supporters. So that's essentially what happened. A perfect storm of news led to the Skyrim Together team finding tremendous success, but it was to be short-lived. After all, they're almost down 10 grand a month from their peak. So what happened? Well, Skyrim Together have been accused of using Skyrim script extender code without permission or accreditation, but that's all following a rather storied history. So years ago, a project called Tamriel Online collapsed, with Siegfried, a key member, going dark. Lagulus, then another person, attempted to get multiple mod developers together for a new project. Yamashi then joined this project, even though Lagulus would go on to say that he had reservations about working with Yamashi again. Why is that? Well, Yamashi had worked on an ESO emulator, which of course is very not good and was shut down by ZeniMax. He then apparently worked with Bethesda/ZeniMax, with Lagulus claiming that he actually was contacted by Yamashi with a Bethesda.com email address. But anyway, back in the days of the Skyrim Online project, he had redistributed Skyrim script extender code without permission. Now, Skyrim script extender, SKSE, basically it's foundational to many of the more complex mods. It's an incredible piece of work that, to cut a very long story short, allows for far greater mod functionality. The relations between the Skyrim Online team and the SKSE team were very bad, to the point of, well, this being written into the SKSE license. Due to continued intentional copyright infringement and total disrespect for modder etiquette, the Skyrim Online team is explicitly disallowed from using any of these files for any purpose. Yeah, you know you've pissed someone off when you are written into their license like that. So, when it came to the development of the Skyrim Together project, of course, since it contained Skyrim Online team members, did they respect this license that basically said they couldn't do anything? No, not at all. Skyrim Together used and uses SKSE code. Now, development continued, and Lagulus ended up leaving the project later on, saying that Yamashi had manipulated him and that he was, well, young and manipulatable, leading to a ruination of his public image, with Yamashi also minimizing his role in the project in external communication. So the project kept on going under Yamashi's leadership, and that really takes us to the modern events. Skyrim Together, of course, entered Patreon early access. The large sum of money then, of course, attracted a lot of attention, including from the SKSE team. After a dive into the project, it was very clear that it was running off a lot of SKSE code, and that led to the SKSE team making a public post. Now, this caught on, and this was widely reported in the news cycle, leading to the Skyrim Together Patreon falling by nearly 10 grand, and, well, a lot of drama being aired in public, complete with Discord screenshots and a lot of unverifiable accusations. Nobody really came off clean, and, well, stealing code like this, especially in the modder community, is particularly bad etiquette. Now, the Skyrim Together team have issued an update admitting to the code reuse, and they have said that indeed they have this Patreon excess income that they don't really know how to use, and that they're right now working on removing SKSE from their project. And while that might seem okay, of course, Lagulus then made a Reddit post, which essentially is I don't want to say a character assassination, that might be too strong of a word, but it certainly is a post that gained a lot of traction that casts negative aspersions against people like Yamashi. So, where does that leave us? Well, for now, Skyrim Together lives, and it is playable. However, how long will that continue to be the case? It's kind of tricky. Their Patreon funding model seems like it is something that could get them shut down. Now, that might seem a bit rich coming from me. After all, I headed up a mod team with a Patreon-based model. So, for background, our project, WoWtails, reverse engineered a bunch of the World of Warcraft event system, and then used that for the basis of what was planned to be a very expansive questing overhaul covering every single zone of the game, complete with fully voice-acted quests and an emphasis on voice acting and narration happening mid-quest so that it would be supporting gameplay rather than just having you sitting about listening to an NPC. Hell, we actually had some custom quest triggers that I don't think Blizzard have in the game yet, and based on our Elwyn Forest Alpha, to be frank, I think we were at the very least offering questing that was on par with the current expansion, probably a little bit better with our internal demo just testing very positively externally. Of course, we were shut down. Why was that? Well, reperformance of Blizzard characters. Technically, we were within a Blizzard add-on policy, but the act of having a fan-made script and performance of technically a WoW character, that was untenable for Blizzard. Now, I did a bit of digging, and us being Patreon funded was not a part of the problem, but that's only because the Patreon was not required to play what we had. We considered having a beta on our Patreon, but we dropped that plan thinking that, well, it's a bit scummy and actually we'll probably get shut down if we do this. Of course, that's what the Skyrim Together team are actually doing. Now, that project, it did cost me 5 grand. As for how I did it, well, I was a fan of console port, so I hired that developer to work on the project, as well as then having our own internal team to work on design and script. Now, they, of course, are working on our own projects. Now, having an amicable relationship with the developer was great. Being able to pay him for his fantastic work was great. But we were already set up like a game studio, not a loose mod collective. As for the Skyrim Together crew, it maybe is not that well set up, and given their current risk, the current level of funding, it does seem like they're at heavy risk of being shut down. Long term, they're probably going to need to transfer away from this Patreon-gated business model. And really, it all brings back thoughts of the paid modding situation. And when you think about it, really, paid modding could have been a cool concept. By creating a financial incentive to develop high-quality community-sourced content, Bethesda could have massively increased the breadth of Skyrim content, with, indeed, a lot of increased quality as well. Markets are a machine that drive increased production, and man, paid mods as an idea really have the potential to do that. But equally, this situation also shows us the great downsides. Modders are generally not professional teams. They're not structured like professional teams, and the amount of just individual person-based drama seems to be a lot higher, with lies, slander, unauthorized use of code. All of these problems bubble to the surface whenever paid mods dropped, and again, when we look at this, and actually with the paid mods, a lot of that also involves Skyrim Script Extender, and then when we see this with the Patreon model and Skyrim Together, yeah, we once again see a lot of those concerns coming back into the fore. For me, really, having paid mods as an ideal, it's a market-based solution, and I think it really is quite cool, but I also think it's quite idealistic, and I think that Skyrim Together shows us the potential pitfalls. Thankfully, we do have people like the Beyond Skyrim Initiative, who are a multi-mod collective that aims to expand the world of Skyrim to many other regions, and seeing them be so well-run and just such an impressive operation, all without crowdfunding, is just crazy. Though, in fairness, given the number of contributors to that project, managing that, if finances were involved, would have been an absolute nightmare. So really, that's the story of Skyrim Together, as well as my experiences running a mod team and a bit of a discussion about paid mods. Paid mods really were such an interesting thing. If we're thinking, I mean, ideally, if we could just, have ended up having Bethesda quality or better than Bethesda quality expansions containing new quest lines, new zones, that would have been really cool. But equally, it's idealistic. And I think whenever projects like this, like Skyrim Together and their drama happens, that really does show us the downsides of paid mods, as well as the fact that ultimately, if you open up the floodgates to paid mods, you're going to have a lot of people stealing other people's work, using code, flooding the store with cheap trash that's not really worthy of being a paid mod. But then once you give Bethesda too much control over that, it then sort of takes away a lot of the benefits of what paid mods could end up doing. Ultimately, paid mods, yeah, it's idealistic in a way. Now, I know that's maybe a bit of a controversial opinion. For me, it's all about, like, can we create a market-based solution to get more high-quality Skyrim content in existence? Idealistically, yes, it is possible. In reality, though, I don't really think it's something that's going to pan out because of the nature of the transition from loose mod collectives where it's all about honor and etiquette into stuff where real money is involved. Because once real money is involved, stuff gets extremely serious. And that's why when we look at this massive Patreon for Skyrim Together, it really is a massive risk factor for that project, and really something that puts a massive target on their back and probably raises legal concerns for Bethesda. So there you go, that's my thoughts on this story, as well as a bit of an overview of the story. It really is very interesting indeed, and ultimately I do hope that maybe in a year or two we do get some good multiplayer Skyrim mod, because you know what, that would be pretty fun indeed. So thank you very much for watching this video. There's plenty more on the channel, so you can check that out, and yeah, with that, cheers, and I'll see you next time.